I had first heard about the Ghost Orchid pretty much when I had first discovered the Fakahatchee Strand, because that was one of the things that it was known for. You know, if you go there, you roll up to the front there, they got this big billboard, and they had always talked about the Fakahatchee being a great place to find what they consider the two most elusive treasures of the Everglades, the Florida panther being one, and then the ghost orchid being the other. So the ghost orchid is actually, which I thought was very interesting, it's the third rarest orchid in the world.
Really?
In the world. And it's only found in the swamps of South Florida, in the Everglades, here in the U.S. And I think it's also found, certain islands of the Bahamas, I think, used to have it. I don't know if they're still there. And then Cuba apparently even has a few as well, too. So the cool thing, though, is the reason that it got its name, the ghost orchid, is if it's not blooming, it's almost impossible to find. And it doesn't have leaves, which is a very rare characteristic for an orchid to not have leaves, because it's just roots on a tree.
Right. And
then for 2 to 3 months out of the year, basically it's roots on a tree and a spike comes out, and then all of a sudden this beautiful little flower blooms. But it's only 2 to 3 months out of the year that you're actually able to see them in bloom.
So that's why they call it the ghost orchid.
That's why they call it the ghost orchid. And I've been on my panther quest here for a while, and my buddy Ryan, for those of you guys that are into orchids and whatnot, go check him out on Instagram, New Age Adventures. I had met him out there in my travels in the Fakahatchee, and he was really into orchids, and he told me that he had found some on his own, which is really impressive, because you have to go off the trail deep into the sloughs to actually find them, because the ones that were close to the trams, poachers have basically picked them clean. So he told me he had found some, and last year I told him, I said, I'd love to see one. And he had said to me, he goes, well, listen, I'll take you out there next year. So ghost orchid season, as they call it, typically starts around June, because that's when we start getting the rainfall. And I called him up, and he goes, all right. He's like, there's one in particular that's getting ready to bloom, and he's like, you want to go out? I said, let's do it. So I went after work.
So hold on, you got guided.
I got guided to a ghost orchid.
All right.
That's real guy shit right there.
It wasn't before, it is now, I guess.
It is now. So he takes me out there, and I'd be lying to you if I said that, because we actually had to go in the water to get to where the orchid was.
Like a little wading.
Yes. Listen, I'd be lying to you if I told you that when we first got in that water, I wasn't zeroed in on looking for gators when we first got in there.
Gators?
Yeah.
I don't think gators are your top priority danger out there. I'm thinking leeches, ticks,
snakes.
Yeah, water moccasins.
Yeah.
And then gator. And the gator, unlike all those other ones, you can probably see him from across would you call it a slough?
The slough.
What's the difference between a creek and a slough?
Well, a creek actually is like a narrow body of water that flows in a certain direction. The slough is just kind of sitting there. It's almost like a dome. It's the coolest thing.
It's almost like a puddle.
It's a swamp. But
no flow.
Well, there is flow, but it's so slow that you can't even notice it. But no, it was. And the water wasn't terribly deep, so it was at the deepest. It was about to our knees,
right? Which
is not terribly deep. But the funny thing is, so we're making our way through the slough, and or the swamp, whatever you want to call it.
No, every time somebody uses the word creek or slough
or crick,
pond, it reminds me like a country song or something.
Oh, do you want me to just call it a swamp instead?
No, call it a slough. I like it. It makes me giggle.
All right. So we're making our way through the slough, and and it's funny. You're looking around and being off the tram. That was my first time. It was such a different experience of seeing the Fakahatchee in that, just kind of in that environment. So we're making our way through, and it was funny because so we get to a point, and Ryan, he just stops, and he looks at me with this big-ass grin on his face. And he's like, "You ready?" I was like, "I'm ready." And he did almost kind of like he stepped to the side like an unveil type thing. And it was so cool because sometimes they're high up in the tree, like they're high up in the canopy. And this one was literally perfect eye level. And just the most perfectly bloomed flower. And it's funny because you see them and it's like, because I've been seeing pictures of them for like a year and a half now, and it's like, holy shit, there it is.
There it is.
And the cool thing is, it's funny because I know a guy that actually, he had told me, he said, I got to tell you, he goes, when you're making your way through the slough, especially all that water, he's like, it's a little daunting at first. Because I know a guy that actually accidentally stepped on a gator, and thank the Lord he had his tripod with him because it bit the tripod and not him.
Oh,
so
that's a lucky break.
Yeah. But he was like, he goes, I'm telling you, he goes, when you finally find that orchid, he's like, it's like all your fears, everything that you were worried about goes away. And that was exactly what happened when we saw that orchid. All of a sudden, it was like everything else just gone. All the stress I had from work, gone. And I was ready. I was so excited. I never thought I'd be so excited to see a plant. You know what I mean? Musso would probably disagree with me on that one, but I was actually like, wow. Like, this is the third rarest orchid in the world, heavily sought after by poachers. And I'm actually seeing it right here in front of me.
That's pretty good. Good job. Congratulations.
Yeah. And then, on the way back, I was like, actually, can we do some more exploring around in here?
You want to find your own ghost orchid?
Well, no, I just wanted to see more of the swamp. I just wanted to see more of, like, the cypress domes and everything. And all of a sudden, then I was having a blast.
You're in a different zone.
I was in a totally different zone. And it was funny because I called my buddy Ryan today. And I said, man, I want to get back off the tram and get back into the sloughs.
All right, so Ryan, elaborate on Ryan. I'd never met him before.
No, I met him out in the Fakahatchee. So he's
a fellow Fakahatchee Strand enthusiast.
We call him Fakahatchers.
Fakahatchers?
There is a term, I swear to you. So we have another term that we use out there too for people that get addicted to going into the Fakahatchee Strand. We call it catching the Faka habit.
All right, dude.
I swear to you.
Right, you got to quit fucking hanging out in the middle of the swamp, dude.
It's addicting. It really is addicting.
What do you guys call it again? Fakahatchers?
Fakahatchers, and then if getting addicted to going out there, they say is you've caught the Faka habit.
Okay. I'm not sure where to take it from there, but let's get more into like the orchid thing and the poaching.
Yes, poaching, it is unfortunately still a real thing out there.
Dude, that's like a real Florida history, is orchid poaching.
Oh, yeah.
People came from all over the world to get these orchids, bring them wherever the hell they brought them, made a ton of fucking money.
Yep.
And they knew it was illegal, but there was no real law enforcement.
No. And so, funny thing is, though, the ghost orchid is the most heavily sought after. But the one orchid that I found out was literally almost poached to the brink, like almost to the brink of extinction, was the cowhorn orchid. I don't know if you heard of that one. I almost wish Steve Musso was here because I feel like he would know, like...
Well, you guys are like orchid guys.
Well, the funny thing to me is I never thought I would really... Because, like, the majority of the people that go in there are orchid enthusiasts.
Right.
I would say, like, 95% of them are orchid enthusiasts because, again, the Fakahatchee is the orchid capital of the U.S., but I never for a second would have thought that I would have understood the hype. But, like, Jeff, some of these orchids are so rare that, like, getting the opportunity to actually see them in their natural habitat, I got to tell you, it is something special. It is something special.
And well, something special about orchids. They have big conventions about orchids. People are, like, way in them. Did you know the New River? There used to be orchid farms all up and down the New River.
That doesn't surprise me. Like, you guys used to see otters in the New River.
There was still an orchid farm up until about 4 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, right before you got the Davie Boulevard Bridge going up the New River on the left. I want to say it's David Ide's grandmother or great-grandmother maybe. But she kept her orchid farm going up until just a few years ago. I think she passed away, and then...
Really?
And if you go by there now, the shell's still there. Little greenhouse and the big fans and everything.
Really?
Yeah. But anyway, I know for a fact that here in Broward County, New River, right where we get all those lunkers and stuff, was big orchid farms.
Wow.
And she was the last of the orchid farms.
Well, it's funny, though, because, again, the ghost orchid is the most heavily sought-after one, but the thing is, and it's been proven, that if you take them from the wild, all of these orchid enthusiasts and poachers, they think that they can actually keep them alive. And they've said that it's been proven at the most a year, and then it's going to die, because it's so adapted to its natural environment. Because again, the temperature has to be right, the humidity has to be right. You're never going to be able to fully replicate that, because again, the ghost orchid. Well, I think orchids in general are just super sensitive.
Yeah.
To temperature, and so it's like you'll never be able to fully replicate what it experienced out in the Strand. But they do still try to take them, though. So the cool thing is that if you're lucky, the only way you're going to be able to find one is you either have to go deep into the sloughs and look for them yourself, or you actually have to meet somebody that trusts you enough to take you to actually go see one.
Right. And that's your dog, Ryan.
Dude, Jeff, he's impressive. He's like 23, 24 years old, 5'2", not a big dude. He goes by himself deep into the sloughs by himself, and he wades into chest-deep water looking for these orchids, and he's actually been successful. So he found a population of ghost orchids that not even Mike Owen, the biologist who had been there for like 30 years, even knew about. I mean, that's real guy shit.
Well, guy's obviously good at finding ghost orchids. I mean, I wouldn't know one if I saw one. I rock right by it. I'd be like, oh, nice orchid, maybe, if I even saw it, period.
So if it's not blooming, unless you know what to look for, you'd probably walk right by it.
Kind of like the licensed python contractor, like that dude.
What was his name again? Matt Briggles. We got to hit him up, though, because I'd like to do that python hunt with him.
I bet he knows where some orchids are.
Maybe.
I bet he's like an orchid guy, like you, Justin Napier, Ryan.
Justin knows about the ghost orchid.
Huff. You guys are probably going to start a thing now. Everybody's going to be like orchid crazy. Orchid life. So is there any special like orchid equipment, gear that you use when you're orchiding out in with you Fakahatchers?
So you're going to start using that now
all the time.
So
torture you with it.
This is how crazy these orchid poachers are. When you take a picture of, let's say, a ghost orchid or any kind of rare orchid out there, but in particular the ghost, you take a picture of it with your phone. That picture has metadata on it.
Metadata.
These dorks somehow can actually use the metadata on that picture and find the exact location where you took the picture of that ghost orchid. So, what you have to do, I thought this was a joke at first, but it's true. If you want to post it on social media, which I did, I wanted to sport the hell out of my orchid.
Were you sporting your ghost
orchid? I was sporting that orchid. I was very proud of that picture. I even got a selfie with it. And so what you have to do is you have to wait till you get home.